Did you know there's over 2 million Americans that have been out of work for 6 months or longer? And many people think that this number is not even close to accurate. It's just what the government will let us report. Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or ghost out. Long-term unemployment is something that I'm coming to grips with. It is no mystery on this channel that I am unemployed, and I am not alone. Long-term unemployment has just hit a 2-year high, and as the job market is going, it's probably going to keep hitting new highs. Currently, there are more people than jobs available, and that number is also expected to rise. With the possibility of federal employees seeing mass firings during the shutdown, that just puts more unemployed people into an already tight job market. It's already cutthroat now to land a good position, but man, there's really no end in sight. The thing that's really frightening about long-term unemployment is how it's really just a gateway into the NEET lifestyle. If you're not familiar with what a NEET is, simply it is a term to describe a man or a woman who is not going to school and also not working or pursuing work. This lifestyle choice that once originated in Japan is coming more and more of a trend worldwide, especially here in America. The most frightening thing about this is that most people don't end up in this situation on purpose. While some people just don't like the idea of working and some might say that they're lazy, a lot of people, especially young people, enter this spot in their life because there's no opportunity for them to bounce off of. America has been feeling the effects of a terrible job market for about the past 2 years. That's kind of when the world kind of fully opened back up, but other countries weren't as lucky as America, and they never had as much of a recovery as America did from the lockdowns, especially in Japan, where this NEET lifestyle started and took over very rapidly. I bring up the lockdowns also to mention that this was always kind of a problem before, but it was dropping down into the years leading up to 2019. But once we were locked inside the house for the 2020s, the amount of NEETs grew exponentially. And even once the world opened back up, many people failed to make that transition back into the real world. On top of that, more people are turning to the NEET lifestyle because they can't find a purpose. I know a job to many people might not seem like purpose, but a job gets people out of the house, and sometimes that is a lot. I think more and more people are very lonely, so while work is not the most amazing place to be, sometimes having people around you is just better than being alone all day. And also, when you're out of these environments for a long time, the want to go back just becomes less and less. I've seen people who have been unemployed longer than I have start to have the mentality that they could never go back to a 9 to 5 because they've gotten so used to doing what they want. Being in the office with the coworkers is not anyone's ideal place. I think if everybody could do what they want, they would, but sometimes being unemployed for an extended period of time can lead you to have standards that just won't be met. Also, I feel like after a certain point, if you just are unemployed and you do enter a NEET lifestyle, it just kind of makes it harder to ever leave. It's like staring into the void. Once you stare into the void, you kind of lose sense of self. And that's exactly what I think losing a job is. For some people, it can be magical and work wonders, but for others, it can be something that just puts their life on a downward trajectory. A lot of us thrive off routine, but when we have it, we like to kind of neglect that we have it. And then once it's taken out of our lives, we see how much it causes us to spiral. I'm one to admit that I can be very lazy if I let myself be. When I left my job, especially in the beginning, I was kind of treating it as a vacation. It took me a little bit of time to really see the severity of the position that I was in. Not that it was necessarily like a bad choice, but I just couldn't get lost in the freedom that I was now posed with. Yeah, I have more time to do what I want, but I still need to focus on what I need to do. And I think when you go unemployed for a while, you forget what you need to do because you have no aspirations to do anything. And I don't necessarily think that that's your fault for getting into that cycle, because when you go unemployed for 6 months, a year, even longer, you get into a stage where being employed seems almost impossible because now you have this insane gap and you've probably dealt with a lot of rejection in that year or so. So the effort level gets diminished and society kind of shows you that they don't care if you don't have a job. Yeah, your parents will love you or your family will love you and treat you with respect, but you have a hard time treating yourself with respect. And if you can't even show yourself love, then why would the world? And that's the thing. I could say a whole speech about why you matter and why you shouldn't let yourself be defined by a $sign, but if you don't actually feel that, then it's gonna feel like the world doesn't care about you either. When you enter a NEET lifestyle, you tend to be quiet about what your needs are, and because you aren't able to provide or bring in income, you'll actually tell yourself that you don't need things things. It's kind of like a cope. Oh, I can't afford things, so I'll just train myself to not need them. It's not like the financial freedom you get when you break the materialism habit, because when you enter a NEET lifestyle or being long-term unemployed, you don't really lose the sense of materialism. You would still like to eat out, you would still like to do the things that you used to do, but you understand getting into a position to afford those things or do those things would require you to get employment, and the thought of that probably drives you crazy because you've tried before and you failed. Long-term unemployment is not taken seriously in this country, when I feel like it's the case for most people. The unemployment rate really only tracks the people who have recently left their jobs or who are actively applying and not on long-term benefits. So when we see numbers like 4.3 or 4.9, or even when it hit 5 to 6% a couple years ago, you kind of have to look at those numbers and amplify them by a lot, because how many people have given up trying? When you take the actual number of everybody that is unemployed and people who have stopped trying plus people who are actively looking, the unemployment stat I think comes around 24 to 27%. Just think about that. A quarter of this country can't find jobs, and the people who do have jobs feel like they're not getting paid enough. When you hear these numbers, the idea of putting yourself out into the world to be employed feels like you're setting yourself up for a long road of rejection and hurt. And the solution to the problem is very simple. Just give people jobs and pay them fair wages and stop trying to cheat the system. But instead, they're gonna try to cut more jobs. Just look at what they're doing with AI. OpenAI just dropped their Sora video generation, and this thing is insane. I dislike AI, but the stuff that Sora can do is actually scary. The reason I say this is gonna take jobs from real people is because the way I see Sora being used the most, or really any AI generated product, is to recreate a movie scene or an art style. When I saw the amount of Pikachu memes or SpongeBob dash cam videos or the political memes that the president was tweeting out that almost seemed like political ads, I realized that this is definitely going to cause a lot of misinformation, yes, but it is planning to take the human out of the creation process. I just see a future, very near future I may add, where AI essentially is the business world and us as people are just the ad revenue. People are going to use AI to make commercials, branding, even political campaigns, and that is going to leave people in the creative sector unemployed. And this is one of the only sectors that has allowed people to really reach financial freedom on their own terms. Yes, there's many ways to become financially free, but content creation has changed many people's lives just by how easy it is to access. Now that dream is going to disappear for many people because they'll be competing with AI algorithms that will favor the AI content over the human-made content because they need to see profits and returns and prove to people that, hey, you actually like the fake content more than you like the real content. If you know anything about how manipulation campaigns work, they just give you bad data and gaslight you until you believe what they're telling you. That sounds a lot like the job market, doesn't it? And that's how this all works. The reason that there's not enough jobs, the reason people are more unhappy, and the reason the rise in NEETs is really being seen now is because what we're being told doesn't match up to what we're actually seeing in our lives. If Gen Z was just too lazy to get a job, then we would have jobs. We wouldn't have 115 rejections. But the constant gaslighting, lying, and manipulation is easy to see through at this point. They're trying to drive us into a brick wall and keep us blinded as long as possible. If you are at this position of your life where you have been facing long-term unemployment and you almost want to give up, if I can leave you with some advice that somebody gave me, try to learn how to detach a job with a sense of security. Because even if you do find a job, there is a possibility you might end up in this position again. And if you don't learn anything from your current situation, the next time it happens, you're gonna spiral just like this time. I know how you're feeling. Many of you are probably thinking, well, I don't even want one anymore. But remember what you're doing it for. You're not doing it because you just love to work, but it's for the goals that you want to achieve. Sometimes you do have to suck it up and do what you need to do. Giving up might seem like the best option, but comfort isn't always the determination of a good choice. And as bad as the situation may seem, if you're able to pursue something, this would be the best time to do it. Not many people get a chance to be separated from the thing that takes up most of their time and reflect. I talked about this in the video the other day. If there's something you want to pursue, actually pursue. There's no better time than the present. The last thing you want to be filled with is regret in your later age. But with pursuing things that you're passionate in, lay out a plan. The reason a lot of us find ourselves in long-term unemployment, I'll admit it's the reason that I think I'm here is because I know I wanted to leave, but the aftermath wasn't really thought about as much. I assumed it wouldn't be this hard to find a job, sorely mistaken, but this time has left me a lot of room to think about what I want moving forward. And as the 2 million of us that are in this same position, keep applying, keep looking, but also stay busy. But let me know down below in the comments, were you shocked to hear that there are 2 million people that are considered long-term unemployed? Or do you think the number is way higher? If you enjoyed this conversation, drop a like and subscribe to join the thread. But with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghost Thread, signing off.